heart is about to open wide.
Welcome once again to Pandora's Box, ladies and gentlemen. Today we have another special guest on the show, Dr. Melissa Davis. Dr. Melissa Davis has a PhD in neuroscience as well as a black belt in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. She's also a hunter based in Montana and a coach for Renaissance Periodization. Renaissance Periodization is a diet and fitness company founded on evidence-based practices that helps their members achieve their health, athletic performance, and physique goals. Thanks for coming on, Dr. Mel.
Yeah, happy to be here.
Yeah, that's quite a list of accomplishments that you've got. So Dr. Mel not only is probably more intelligent than you, but she could probably kick your ass as well. I mean, that's very impressive in itself. If you're like one of the smartest, but also one of the deadliest people we've ever had on as a guest, I mean, that's instant sort of respect, instant respect my end. But yeah, the last time I spoke to you via email when we were sort of setting up you coming on the show, you said that you were busy bear hunting. How's that going?
Yeah, it's going okay. They just started waking up, so they're not moving around much yet. So they're kind of hard to find. Been finding groggy. A little bit of sign, but haven't found my bear yet.
So, how much of your time is that taken up at the moment?
At least every weekend, and I try to go out every evening that I can. Yeah,
and I've been following you for a while on Instagram. I can't remember how I originally came across your page or something. It might have been, I don't know. I think I probably started following Dr. Mike Israel, who's obviously a co-worker of yours, isn't he? A long time ago. He's sort of really blown up nowadays, isn't he? But it might have been through that somehow. But I remember coming on your page and I thought Dr. Mel was a cool lady, so I started following you. And obviously, you live in. I've got envy, by the way, as well, because I always think I've never been to Montana, but it's always one of those places that I think I'd absolutely love to go there. I love hiking and nature and wildlife and stuff, and sort of I'm not a city person in the slightest. So whenever I see all your pictures and stuff of your horses and your sort of nice cabiny house and everything, I'm like, oh, that's amazing. But when you go hunting, do you literally just go out your front door and just go walking?
I go a little further. I have some places I like in the mountains. Montana is really cool in that we have so much public land available, so you can get away into the woods and never see another person. So I have my little nooks and crannies I like best for certain animals.
Sure. How long have you been hunting?
It's been about 5 years now.
All right. And how did you get into it?
I was at I was at a jiu-jitsu barbecue, and one of my teammates brought, I forget if it was deer meat or bear meat, taco meat, and we had tacos, and I was like, oh, you can just go into the woods and get food? I like going to the woods. I like food. I want to try this. So I started getting into it.
Yeah, I mean, that's pretty much the same reason why I think why I've sort of been fascinated by hunting. It's a bit harder to do this side of the pond just because England's I think it's just about the same size as Texas, but a bit smaller than Texas, I think. But considering how, I think if you compare the population of Texas compared to the population of England, you'd realise how massively populated England is.
Right.
I think London's still one of the top 10 most populated cities in the world and stuff. And obviously there's just not as much wildlife here nowadays. I mean, there are some absolutely beautiful places, and there's lots of areas of outstanding natural beauty, as they're called over here, but you could probably walk, you could probably hike from one end through a forest to the other end a day through a lot of these places. Do you know what I mean? It's not like it is in America, and the wildlife there is just amazing. And I always feel envious. I watch Meat Eater, Stephen Rinella. Do you know Stephen Rinella? Yeah, I watch his stuff because he's freaking awesome, isn't he? And he's such a smart guy, and I love his. I've got a couple of his books, and I've been watching his stuff for a while. But I'm definitely envious of you guys across the pond because hunting for you guys over there is very different from hunting over here.
The stags are very cool, though. That's a very cool.
Oh yeah. I mean, I do know a hunter, a guy that has a deal with some guy that owns land it's called the Quantocks. It's in Somerset, which is the county that we live in the southwest of the UK, and he does hunt red deer and things like that. But it's a bit harder to get into over here, and I think in the UK it's a bit people think of hunting and it's a bit more, you think of really sort of posh people in tweed hunting grouse and stuff.
Right.
Do you know what I mean? Whereas I think it's a very different perception in America. You think of in hunting in America, you think more of people Steve Ranella and stuff like
Yeah.
that, which is
Very
so
much
cool.
not posh.
Yeah. I think that's really interesting. You said that at that barbecue you went to, that it might have been bear meat, because that's quite like I think for a lot of people that's quite like an intense thing to eat if you've never eaten before. Do you know what I mean?
It is. It's my favorite game meat, though. To
Yeah?
me, it's the most like beef.
Right.
Oh, yeah, it's definitely my favorite game meat and my favorite species to hunt. They're just such interesting animals.
Yeah. Is it what sort of do you have like a preference to have like black bear or brown bear or?
You can't hunt brown bear here.
Oh, can you not?
can in Alaska, but here grizzly bears are protected. They're still, even though the population is expanding, and I see almost as many of those as black bears, but
Really?
they're still on the endangered list.
So was that literally just because of overhunting in the past, and they just put them on protection? Right. Okay.
Yeah, before we really had good hunting regulations here, kind of back in the Wild West days, they just obliterated the grizzlies and the wolves. But
Yeah.
conservation's gotten a lot better. The rules and regulations are much more conservation minded, keeping all of the species around for as long as possible and managing. So
That's cool. Are you like fussy with like sort of what time of? Well, I know you said that obviously you're hunting for them at the moment, but I've heard that like it really depends with bears. Like their meat can change flavour depending on whether they're eating like a lot of berries at the time, or I've heard a lot of people say that you don't really want to eat them if they've been like sort of eating a lot of like fish, like salmon and things, because they can get really fishy. So like, do you have to be careful with stuff like that?
Around here, none of the bears eat too much fish. They mostly eat in the spring flowers and grass, maybe a couple fawns. And then in the fall, they mostly eat berries. So spring bear meat, to me, tastes delicious. I haven't had fall bear meat here yet, but I'm sure with the berries, it might be even better. So
I've heard that it's like delicious. Like if you have like a bear that's been eating like sitting in like berry bushes, just like gorging it. It's like almost got a sweet taste, I've heard.
Yeah. They use the fat too of like a berry bear to make pastries and stuff, which I've also never had, but hopefully eventually I can make some
amazing.
of my own with blueberry bear fat.
How hard was it to get into like hunting? So you said that it sort of piqued your interest. Obviously, I guess there's like a certain amount that you have to learn before you can just go out there. And also another interesting question, like obviously you said that your favorite thing is hunting bear. Obviously, bears are like very formidable creatures, and I could imagine, well, I was going to say probably a lot of people find them scary, but I think if you're sensible, you probably should have a healthy respect or fear for them, regardless of how macho you are. But like, what was that like? Like, getting into it, like getting all clued up. Like, did you have a history with like firearms and all like the sort of like hunting gear? And was it sort of intimidating for you to like go chasing bears around?
Yeah, so when I started, I was only hunting deer at first, and I had a background a little bit. I shot guns as a kid, did camping and stuff, but there's definitely like learning ballistics and how to dial in a scope and stuff for different distances was a learning curve I had to overcome, because first I didn't realize like you actually have to make adjustments depending on how far away the animal is, so that you're going to hit at the right place. So I love academic stuff, so jumping into learning that was super fun for me, but it was one of the hurdles I had to overcome. And then when I came to Montana and started hunting here, I was doing a lot of hunting alone, which at first was pretty intimidating, just because there are grizzly bears out and about here. There's a lot of dangerous animals out in the woods here. So getting more comfortable and learning to recognize sign and just be aware and know when I'm in a not safe place and stuff like that was a learning curve for sure, but I've gotten a lot more comfortable with that over time.
So have you like ever since you moved to Montana? Like, I didn't realize. So you're not from Montana originally?
No, I grew up in California, but don't tell the other Montanans, they'll kick me out.
Then did you say that like ever since you moved to Montana, like you've pretty much been exclusively hunting alone?
Pretty much, yeah. I have a couple of buddies here now that I hunt with, but usually only, on a weekends. So during the week, I'm always solo.
It's like from a logistical standpoint, isn't that like quite hard? I mean, I know obviously like you work out all the time and stuff like that, but like say you like shot like an elk or a bear, like how do you carry all of that back on your own?
Yeah. If it were an elk, I would definitely pull out my InReach satellite and be calling friends to come help. But for a bear, I have like it's like a rolled up thick piece of canvas with rope through it, and I bring that with me, and I can basically turn that into a sled and pull it like a sled dog out of the woods. So that's
Nice.
helpful. If the bear were big enough, I'd probably, field dress it and hang 2/4 in a tree and pull it out and then go back and get the rest. So
Sure. Yeah, I like the sort of the sled method. Getting your sled drags in. Getting those legs burning. So, like, why did you decide to move to Montana? Was it just to be like more in like the wilderness and wildlife and things like that?
yeah, I just wanted a place that had more trees than people, where hunting was kind of an easier, more straightforward thing to do. More sort of libertarian mindset out here. I liked all of those things.
Doing everything for yourself and not having to rely on anybody. And do you find, are you like naturally like a fairly introverted person as well? Like, do you just like having your space and?
A bit, yeah.
Yeah. No, I think that's one of the things that like appeals to me as well. Like, I don't know about you, but like, as I said, I'm not really like a city person. Like, being in the middle of sort of like nowhere and just seeing nothing but like hills and trees and stuff like around, like that's
Not
like my
being able
idea
to
of
see neighbors.
happiness. Yeah.
Totally, yeah.
So were you born in California?
Yes, yeah.
Whereabouts?
Southern California, Orange County.
Oh, okay. And what was life like for you growing up in California?
So my mom lived in town. I don't know that I'd call anywhere in Orange County a city, but it's definitely more of a city than anything out here. But suburbs kind of. And then my dad lived out in the high desert below the mountains, like dirt roads, can't see the neighbors kind of thing. So I had a bit of a taste of both suburban life and, run around on motorcycles with guns as a kid life. And I was more drawn to the latter.
Nice. So, like, obviously you're a very academic person. Were your parents academic as well? Like, what sort of things did they do with their lives and for a living?
No, my dad's a contractor. My mom she sold title insurance for houses. Neither of them actually went to college for anything. So
Oh, okay.
I was kind of the first truly academic person. I think other people had academic leanings, but no one really went to college in my family before me.
That's interesting. Why do you think that is? I'm asking you questions you probably don't know the answer to, but
I think part of it might be it's the women in my family who were sort of more on the like academically interested intellectual end of things, and like my grandma's era, going to college for a woman was pretty rare. She had her first kid at 17, so just wasn't in the stars. And then
sure.
my mom, kind of the same thing, got married and became a housewife fairly young and just didn't really pursue anything like that. So and then the men were more like mechanics and construction workers and that kind of thing. So
Sure. So would you say that like you enjoyed school?
oh yeah, very much.
Yeah? So
Yeah.
were you like, you just like loved like learning and loved being in the classroom and stuff like that?
Yeah, to the point where, because no one really, I didn't have like mentors in how to do college. So during my undergrad, I didn't have an understanding or think of it as like, this is a thing I need to get through to get to the end and get to the degree. I was just like, oh, neat. I can learn about poetry. I can take a Japanese class. Oh, how about a biology class? I was like, this is a playground. And then at some point the college contacted me and they're like, you need to complete your degree. You have too many credits. And like, it doesn't look like you're heading in any single direction. I was like, oh, damn, I'm supposed to be, this is a thing to do and finish. I got it. That's okay.
That's awesome. And like, what about like on the physical side of things? Obviously, you're a very physical person nowadays. Like, were you like in school as well? Did you love doing like sports and things like that?
I was interested when I was a kid. My brother was in a bunch of sports and I was in like baton and ballet because that's just the era. That's what you did. The girls did, dance or whatever, and the boys did real sporty stuff. And I always wanted to do sports, and my brother always like cried at all the soccer games and hated it. But I just never, for whatever reason, I never told my parents that. I was a bit clumsy when I was young. I remember in elementary school being ahead of everyone in academics, but they were like, she can't figure out jump rope. She's really behind. And I started Tahitian dancing with a family across the street when I was 12 or 13, and I struggled at first, but I think that actually really helped me develop more athleticism, because I'd go there and practice every day, and they would push me and yell at me, like the only white girl in the troop, like, get it together. And I think I developed like more athleticism at that age going through that process. And then as I got older, I got more and more into various things.
Oh, nice. So, like, you said you did like ballet when you were young. Did you actually enjoy that, or was that just something that you sort of did because you were told to?
Yeah, I don't remember loving it.
No, just wasn't for you.
No.
I mean, I definitely like. I mean, I definitely have like a respect for it, because I mean, the ladies that do that, not only is it like a real art, but like, I mean, just like the brutality that they put their feet through and stuff as well. It's like crazy, isn't it?
Absolutely, it's actually pretty hardcore. It wasn't hardcore for me at 4 or 5, but I know in reality it is. I was more drawn to like fishing and, you know, lighting fires, and a bit of a tomboy. Yeah. So
I mean, I can definitely empathize with that. So like, what did you do? What did you choose to do in college?
I started out being an English major, and then I switched to being a Japanese major, and then I switched to being a biology major, and then I finished out undergrad as a neurobiology and behavior major. And so I completed my degree in neurobiology and behavior, and then went on to get the PhD in neuroscience and follow that up. That's
so cool. I mean, I'd love to know more about that, as somebody that knows very little about neuroscience. Like, so sort of like in like layman's terms, what would you say you had to learn to get a PhD in neuroscience? Yeah,
so a lot of understanding. Sorry, I'm having allergies. A lot of understanding of how what sort of brain processes and brain areas are involved in different aspects of cognition, you know, sort of the history of how we started with neuroscience, like drilling holes in people's heads and measuring skulls and all sorts of barbaric stuff.
Was it like trephining or was it? Is it called trephining or
trepanation? Yeah.
Trepanation. Yeah. Like caveman, just like bash him in the head with a rock because there's a demon in his skull.
Yeah, we think something's going on in there, and I mean, in some ways they weren't wrong. The problem wasn't there, but the hole wasn't really the solution. Yeah. And a lot of understanding how neurons fire and how neurotransmitters bind and adjust during learning. A lot of focus on learning and memory in my degree. A lot of people worked on addiction. We had to study it a lot, but I didn't work on that so much. Most of my focus was on...
No, please, sorry, go on. Don't want to interrupt.
Most of my focus was on plasticity, like when is the brain able to change and how can we make that happen?
Wow, that's so interesting. Yeah, that's literally what I was going to ask you. I was going to say, what area did you focus on more? But that's so cool. How did you, obviously, when you got your PhD and everything like that? So, sort of like, what happened after that? What happened when you left college and you had, you know, so you're now Dr. Mel for life. So what happened after that? Because obviously now, you know, a lot's happened since then with you being involved with RP, and then obviously your Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu black belt, which is so badass as well. So like, what happened after that?
Yeah, so I finished my PhD. I did a postdoc for about 3 years. While I was doing that, I was working part-time for RP. And while I really enjoyed the process of science, like developing an experiment and executing it and like, getting the data, seeing what the answer was and sort of finding stuff out like that was really fun for me, I realized I was in the lab, 60 some hours a week. The pay was crap. And I didn't have time to do anything other than like lab, jujitsu, eat, sleep. And I had a lot of other things I was interested in. I wanted to be outside more. So then I transitioned to working for RP for full time because it gave me so much more flexibility. I didn't have to be at any one place. I could do everything online, sort of adjust my schedule. And it was less than 60 hours for more money. So I was like, all right, I think I'm done with science from this perspective of working in the lab.
Am I right in thinking that Nick Shaw is the guy that founded RP?
Yes, yeah.
Yeah, so how did you like meet him? Because obviously you said that you were like working part-time. Like how did you even get that gig?
Yeah, so Dr. Mike actually grew up with my grad school roommate in Michigan. So every summer while I was in grad school, Dr. Mike was sleeping on my couch for a couple of weeks.
That's hilarious.
And coming to visit at various times.
I bet he was an interesting guy to have living on your couch. He certainly seems like a character.
Yeah, you certainly didn't want to walk out in the living room if it was a hot day, because he probably would be naked.
That's awesome.
But yeah, so I got to know Dr. Mike really well, and he was basically like, "Hey, Mel, do you want to coach the moms? Because they started out, with mostly hardcore people signing up, and he's like, we're getting all these moms, and we think like a woman's touch could really help." And I was like,
I like how Mike's like, I don't want to train them. I want to find someone else to train them.
They have emotions and they get upset, and yeah, we think we need a woman.
What a Russian, eh?
Yeah.
Yeah. That's hilarious. Yeah, because it's like, I mean, I'm not like that well versed in like, everybody that works for RP, but I mean, it's quite obviously unique with you being like a doctor in neuroscience compared to like, the more like standard sports scientists or like personal trainers and things like that.
Yeah, a bit different. I think I've helped bring some of the behavior change focus for more Gen Pop people into RP. I think that's kind of been my role. They have the more, sort of people who have a really in-depth understanding of like precise nutrition for different like issues, like the RDs and stuff there, who really bring that, and the sports scientists who can really, just make anybody perform their best at whatever sport. And then I feel like my niche has been to bring in like behavior change aspects, like, okay, how do you get yourself to do the things you have to do to get to the place you want to be?
I guess that's like what like is more typically called like sports psychology, isn't it?
Yeah, a bit more of that leaning, yeah.
But they say, don't they? I mean, and you can see it as well. I mean, you see it, if for anybody that's into like any sports or athletics, like the mental strength is what like makes or breaks you as like an athlete. You can have all the physical skills in the world, or you can think of like examples of people that were probably like physically extremely blessed, maybe like the most blessed, but they weren't necessarily the ones that like got to the pinnacle of their sport. It's a lot of the people that were at the pinnacle of their sport was like had that mental strength mixed with like the other attributes that you need, like the technique and everything else.
Absolutely. I used to run in grad school with a bunch of people who did, a lot of ultra marathons and much better runners than I ever was. And there was one chick who exemplified that so well. She would barely train. She trained about half as much as everyone else. Half the time she'd show up in the morning for the run, either still drunk or severely hungover. She wouldn't lift weights. She had no structure or schedule. And she could outrun me without even thinking. We did a marathon, and at one point she was like, I'm going to run fast for a while. We're running together. She took off, and then about 45 minutes later, she came back. She was like, I got bored. So she ran like an extra like 5-6 miles of the marathon just to like hang out and talk. And I was like, man, I have trained so hard, like got all of my lifting in line, did all of my training runs in perfect succession. And like, she's just, if she tried 50%, she'd probably be like some kind of champion runner. And she just wasn't interested.
I have a friend actually called Josh, who's exactly the same as that. Like we were in he's like not interested in like sports or athletics at all. He's like he's a really good musician and a good artist, and he does actually like run and work out nowadays just because he was basically, I think, he was drinking a lot of beer and like putting on weight, and he thought we're getting to like our mid-30s now, we better sort of like dial it in a little bit, So so he does actually like run like for fun now. But when we were in school, I remember we were doing like relay race, and we were just with like two sort of like very and I say this affectionately, two quite like nerdy girls that we were like friends with. They definitely wouldn't mind me saying that. And it was just me and Josh. And I was like a pretty good runner. Like I played like a lot of rugby in school and that, but I wasn't like anything special. I was like pretty good for like quite a big guy. But I'd say maybe just like a little bit above average. And there were like some teams. It was just more like for fun. So people weren't taken overly serious. So they were like intergender teams and stuff. But some of the teams were like, would just be like 4 of the sportiest lads in our year. And then it was like me and Josh, and then like Kim and Michaela. And we were doing the relay. I remember it was like Kim first, Michaela, and then me, and then Josh last. And then like we were like one of the last by the time the baton got to me. And then like I tried to do obviously as well as I could, like manage to like, maybe overtake like 1 or 2 people, by the time I got the baton to Josh. And like Josh just freaking like watching him, it was actually like it was like watching something special, you know. Like I passed it to him, and I was just like watching him, and he just like overtook everybody. Like it was like watching freaking you. It was like watching like a white Usain Bolt, right? And he just like, and he's sort of, and he's built quite similar as well. Like he's like tall and like really, but like all arms and legs, you know, like. And he just freaking overtook everyone. It was won super casually. And I remember like our like sports teacher was just like, she was this Welsh lady called Mrs. Clark, and she was like, Josh, you need to start running for like county. You're wasting like a massive talent. And he was just real casual, like nah, I'm not interested. Like sorry, but yeah, it's mad, isn't it? When you see somebody that's that like gifted in something, especially if they're just not bothered and they just throw it away. You're like, man, that's crazy.
Not interested.
Yeah, or you see some people, don't you? And they're like, you know, like just like they're like some builder guy or something, and they've just got like frickin' like well, I would say like rugby ball like calves or like American football calves. And they just don't even work out. They just freaking like work on a construction site or something, or like on a building site. And you know guys that are like freaking doing calf raises with like 1,000 pounds in the gym all the time and stuff. You know, like just trying, and they still don't have like good lower legs and stuff. It's just like genetics plays such a major factor in like any physical endeavor. So cool.
Like that meme of the dad in like the Nike shoes and the tall white socks with like the giant calves, like hasn't hit the gym in the last 15 years.
Yeah, I've seen that. By the way, I have to say, I freaking always love your memes. We have very similar sense of humor. Like the stuff that you put up sometimes, like on your Instagram, I always just think like, that's freaking hilarious. I can't think of any examples off the top of my head, but you're definitely one of the best memers I follow on Instagram. But like, you know, you were saying that you were already like doing jiu-jitsu and stuff by the time you started working for RP. When did you get into that, and how did you get into jiu-jitsu?
Yeah, I got into jiu-jitsu, must have been around 2009, somewhere around there. Maybe a little earlier, and then I stopped and restarted. I had a buddy who I'd known since I was 12, and he opened a kickboxing gym. And I always did a little boxing, kickboxing classes, you know, nothing serious, never competed. And he kept saying, like, you would love jiu-jitsu, because when I was in my 20s, whenever I would drink, I would want to wrestle people. It was just like, first inclination was like, I'm going to beat you up in a playful manner. He was like, you really like, I can tell it's something inside you that wants to do this. You should try jiu-jitsu. And I was like, no, it's gross. They're all sweaty, like rolling around on the ground. And then finally I humored him and took a class, and I was like, this is the best thing ever. And I think for that entire summer, I went like 6 times a week because I was like, this is awesome.
So did you find it was like something, was it like very natural to you? Like, did you progress quickly?
I think I progressed pretty quickly. I don't know if it was because of any inherent talent or just the whatever the talent of psychosis is, where I just wanted to train all the time. So I wasn't ever like, oh, let's go 3 times a week. It was always like every single chance I can get, I'm going to go to the gym.
That's freaking awesome. And like, how long have you been doing jiu-jitsu now?
About 15 years, I think.
Yeah? And how long have you had your black belt?
Almost 6 years.
That's so cool. So, I mean, you progressed like fairly quickly then?
Yeah, I had during early grad school, I took some time off and didn't train very much just because it was so intense. It was not possible. So I had a couple of times in my life where there were gaps where I was just like, I can't be here as much as I'd like to be. But yeah, I think I progressed fairly quickly. Have
you ever rolled with Dr. Mike?
Yeah, it's not fun.
Did you kick his ass?
He's far too big. He's just
yeah, sure.
It's like he can just lay down and I'm suffocating.
Get you in like a crucifix position and just like lie there.
Yeah.
Just like tap out from that.
Just really hurt his fingers if we're in the gi and he grabs the gi, because I have a quick snap off and he doesn't have a quick let go. But yeah, unless you catch his arm, which he can't, like past here, he's already tapping. Oh, yeah. So that's his weak point, but still hard to get because he's just, yeah, his forearm's probably stronger than my torso.
That's hilarious. Do you like find it? Do you still like do jiu-jitsu all the time now that you're living in Montana? Like, how far away from civilization are you?
It's been a lot less. It's a very long drive to the jiu-jitsu gym. I've trained a bit, but then I had knee surgery last year, or little over a year ago. And so that took me out for quite some time, but I'm kind of ready to start going back and be what I used to refer to as a filthy casual, someone who only trains like 3 times a week. But I think I'm ready for that now.
Well, how did you injure your knee?
First, jiu-jitsu about 5 years ago, I blew my ACL out, and
Nasty.
I just couldn't be bothered with getting the surgery because I didn't want to stop training or stop anything for that long. But not having an ACL makes you a bit vulnerable to other things. So
yeah, screw getting that knee barred with a blown ACL.
Or just walking downstairs wrong.
Yeah, just that.
Yeah, I was riding I went by to see my mule and horse and hopped on bareback, and they're both very tall, and I kind of misjudged the distance when I jumped off because I didn't have the saddle or the stirrups, and my knee hit wrong and I exploded the rest of it, and then there was no choice for surgery. I couldn't walk, so.
What was that like for you psychologically? Because I know a lot of people get really freaking depressed when they are injured, and especially if you're like somebody that's like used to doing, insert whatever physical endeavor like every day or 5 days a week or whatever. It could be really mentally tough because you feel like it's almost like that could be like your identity in a way. It's a big part. It's a big part of it anyway. To have that stripped from you against your will can be really hard to deal with. Yeah,
it was brutal. I've almost like blacked out how bad it was. It was really hard.
Yeah.
Especially, I think once I was able to start doing like PT and some lifting and had something I could work on and progress towards, and have quantifiable progress.
Sure.
It got better, but the first month or so when I wasn't even allowed to stand up, it was really, really rough.
Darkness, my old friend.
Yes. Luckily, they also had me on a lot of drugs at the time, so I was just like asleep or eating cupcakes. So that's kind of how I got to do it.
Takes the edge off a little bit. Yeah, just takes the edge off. Yeah. So, you said that you're going to get back into it like soon. I imagine you're going to be going like, are you going to have to go like somewhere different than you were before, or?
Yeah. So there's a couple gyms out here. SBG, Straight Blast Gym, who you might know from. Why am I blanking on his name right now? Conor McGregor.
Right.
He was Straight Blast Gym. That's sort of where
I didn't even know that. I mean, I do follow MMA a lot, but I didn't know that's where he goes.
Yeah, or where he went for jiu-jitsu anyway, coming up.
Right, yeah.
But yeah, so there's that place, and I go back to California every now and then and get to spend some time training there. I'm actually going to Arizona for a women's jiu-jitsu retreat at the end of June.
Nice.
So I'm kind of sprinkling it back in here and there. I'll probably, like I said, go like 3 times a week or something.
Oh, that's awesome. Do you like follow MMA a lot? Obviously, you mentioned Conor McGregor, and obviously you're into martial arts a lot.
I did. I struggled with it a bit when I moved out here because you're talking about identity, like leaving serious training and serious competition for jiu-jitsu was really hard for me because it was, for a decade plus, it was a big part of my identity. It's something I did every day. It's something like I was focused on all the time, and I was competing monthly, and it was huge. And then I moved out here and I was like, I can go to jiu-jitsu a couple times a week, and there's not a lot of people to train with, and there's not a lot of competitions, and it was like hard for me to watch MMA because I'd get this FOMO to be back in it and back competing and back hardcore training, and I was like, you're getting a little old for this to be like such a serious thing. You have a lot of other interests, so I kind of backed off of watching as much MMA because it stressed me out.
That's hilarious. I love how you can't watch it because it stresses you out because of how much you want to get into it. It's all right. You can go down to Conor McGregor's gym and choke him out.
Yeah.
It's not his speciality anyway, so it's fine. You're just doing 8 Diaz.
Yeah. As long as he doesn't knock me out, I can get it.
Yeah, sure. Was it much of a culture shock for you when you moved to Montana? I mean, there's one thing, obviously, like, in your head, like liking the idea of moving like to the wilderness, from somewhere like California. But what was it like the transition to living in a far more sort of like, place where you have to rely on yourself a lot more, be a lot more self-sufficient? What was that like?
Oh, I loved it. It was like breathing fresh air for the first time. Like I lived in a condo in California before I moved, had like shared walls with other people. There were constantly gardeners outside my window, because I worked from home.
Yeah,
Just
sure.
I don't know how
Lawns
many
and
bushes needed to be trimmed a day,
yeah,
but man, they
yeah.
found one every day. So just the quiet and the stillness and the like, I can do what I want feeling was great. Something I didn't expect, which was interesting and cool, was, growing up around LA and Orange County, people are very, I'm not going to say everyone is vain, but there is definitely like a much higher level of focus on how you look and what you drive and things like that. And I felt some level of pressure, not to go to the store in my pajamas, even though that's more of my natural state is to go to the store in my pajamas.
Sure, yeah.
Or walk around outside barefoot or, things like that. You felt very like judged. Whereas here it's kind of like if you show up to the grocery store dressed nicely with your hair all done, people are like, who does she think she is? What is she doing?
Yeah.
So it was a lot more chill feeling out here, and I really liked that.
Yeah, I can imagine. Yeah, I think that's something that I sort of like struggle with a little bit as well. Like, some people are just so into like fashion, and like I know like some people that spend like are willing to spend like hundreds and hundreds of like pounds on like train, like sneakers and stuff like that, and just, like shoes and freaking like t-shirts and stuff like that. And I'm like, man, it's like I really could not care less. And I remember like overhearing some people once talking about like about like how they didn't ever want to wear like a old belt buckle because they thought that was like lame, like a belt buckle style belt. I don't know what they sort of belts they thought were cool, but I just remember thinking like it's so weird to me because I pretty much would wear just like a mixture of either like tops I've bought for the gym or like old band t-shirts, like Metallica t-shirts and freaking things like that, and like flannel shirts, jeans and boots, and that's about it really. That's like no, I could care
does the belt
less.
Hold my pants up? Does the shirt keep me warm? I
could care less about like brands, or if this is like a naff brand, or if it's a cool brand. I literally couldn't give a toss. Yeah, it's nice to be in like somewhere a bit more chill. So like, do you like grow any of your own food like where you are? And
I garden. It's the growing season here is pretty short just because of how long the winter is, but I do have an indoor hydro garden where I start a bunch of herbs and plants, and then once the last frost is done, I'll plant them outside and let them grow. I do a lot of foraging, so look for like berries and mushrooms and things like that in the fall, which I find really fun. I don't know why. It's like a hide and go seek in the forest kind of thing. Like,
yeah, for
it's
sure.
so exciting to find a berry bush and be like, I'm the only person who knows
what sort of things can you forage where you live?
So in the late summer, early fall, we've got huckleberries, we've got wild raspberries, wild strawberries. There are thimbleberries, which is a weird berry that kind of looks like a raspberry, tastes like a watermelon almost. There's several different kinds of edible mushrooms that are available, wild leeks, and then basically just a bunch of salad plants too, like sort of flowers and leaves you can eat.
Sure. How long did it take you to get clued up on this stuff? Because obviously you have to be very careful with foraging, because a lot of plants are obviously very deadly, and especially things like with, you said you picked some mushrooms. If you pick like the wrong mushroom because some of the mushrooms look so similar, but one is like will be fine and the other one will make you like...
You're either going to have a wild trip, a good meal, or you're going to die.
Yeah, pretty much. Yeah, pretty much. So like, like how clued up did you get on this stuff? Like, and did you have any background in that before you moved to Montana, or did you literally just learn it all when you moved?
I learned it all when I moved. Mushrooms, I'm still super careful. There's like 4 that don't really have a dangerous look-alike that I will eat. I haven't graduated to eating the ones that have dangerous lookalikes yet because I don't trust my knowledge enough.
Yeah, I mean, you'd be stupid not to.
The berries are pretty straightforward. What's that?
Yeah, I said you'd be stupid to, really, wouldn't you? I mean, there's no point like dicing with death, just like willy-nilly, just picking mushrooms and stuff.
Like hillbilly roulette.
Yeah, for sure. And what are like your favorite things to grow when you're at home?
I like to grow tomatoes because I'll make a lot of sauces and salsa and stuff, and peppers, just because some of the things I miss about California are all the spicy foods, all the Asian foods and Mexican foods, and there's less of that here, so I like to grow peppers and be able to make some of it. I grow some strawberries too. I don't know how I feel about strawberries. We'll see if those are coming back this year. I haven't decided. And just having fresh herbs to cook with is really fun. I like that.
Oh yeah, for sure. What are your favorite herbs?
I use basil a lot. I use cilantro a lot, rosemary, mint.
Yeah, beautiful. I love rosemary.
Yeah,
I've got a load of raspberry in my garden. Just because it goes so well as well with like lamb and stuff, and I just love lamb.
Oh yeah. It's actually I use it a lot if I make wild game stews. Rosemary is a really good compliment.
Yeah, it's lovely, and bees love it as well, don't they? Not that I imagine you have that many bees like around your house, but like it's like
there's a few. They show up for a month or so in the summer.
Yeah, sure. So like, how out in the sticks are you where you live? Like, because I remember hearing like a saying, what is it they say? It's like 100 years is a long time in America, but 100 miles is a long distance in the UK, and it's very true. I find it's very true. Like I've heard Americans sometimes are like fascinated. If like you live in a house which is like 350 years old in the UK, but that's not abnormal. Like in like
right,
like
yeah.
this, do you know what I mean? But I mean for us, just because our country's so much smaller, like I had to drive to like like a 5-hour round trip for work like a couple of weeks ago, and I didn't particularly enjoy it. Like it's just like so like what's it's like I mean I'm happy to do it.
You're not in Kansas anymore. You're on Pandora, ladies and gentlemen.
We just had a little technical glitch there. Either ours or Dr. Mel's internet went down, but we're back now. I was just asking. Yeah, I was gonna say. Yeah, I mean, who knows though? Who knows? I mean, we're in a fairly rural county as well. Like this is sort of like farmland country in the UK. Like Somerset is known for like cider and farmers essentially. So we're like the rednecks of the UK.
Stuff, I like it.
But yeah, no, I was asking you like how far you are out in the sticks, because I was saying there's that old saying that like 100 years is a long time in the US, but 100 miles is a long distance in the UK. So like so when you like, do you go to like the store very often, like the grocery store, and how far away is it?
Yeah,
from you?
so just side note, a friend of mine just bought a house out here, and he's almost 100 miles away, which to me was like, oh, he's gonna be so close, but it has a 100-year-old schoolhouse on the property, and we're like, oh my god, ancient, right. So ancient, but
that's hilarious.
But yeah, so there's like a lot of places around here in the rural areas, there'll be like a tiny little market. So there's a tiny little market that's like 15 minutes away, and then if I want to go do like a real grocery store run and like have everything I want available and stock up, then it's about 45 minutes to get to a real grocery store.
Okay, so that's not too bad.
No.
Then. I was imagining you driving like hours just to like, get some milk.
Yeah, no, it's about 50 miles, but it's along, most of it's on a highway to get there. So, and Montana's only had speed limits for a little bit, but it's still 80 miles an hour, which I'm trying to calculate into kilometers. But I'm still mad at
no, that's all right. We do miles per hour.
Oh, that's right. That's right.
Yeah, so it's weird. We're a weird country because we sort of mix imperial and metric units. Whereas, like, I mean, I know that like some people don't like this. It's probably just for whatever reason, just because we're a bunch of stubborn and difficult people. The UK don't consider themselves part of Europe, even though like we are basically like if you look at us on a map, it's hard to argue that we're sort of like not. But obviously like all of Europe, like France and all of those other countries, they will solely use metric. Whereas in the UK we're weird because we mix and match. So like you would never see a sign saying like this many kilometers to like London. It would always be miles. And then obviously we have some really unique weird things which I know confuses a lot of people. Like it's still very common to like say your weight in stone, which I know is really, really confusing to people. I couldn't tell you how like the easiest way to sort of like figure out how much you would be in stone, but I know that I'm about 16 stone roughly. I sort of fluctuate between 16 and 16 and a half stone, and that's about like 220 230. So I fluctuate between about 220 and 230 pounds.
Yeah, I remember.
That's like my sort of like normal walk around weight.
Somewhere between 8 and 15 pounds is a stone. I remember learning this at some point, but well,
you know better than me, so there you go. Yeah. And I think with because I know a lot of people get confused with I think that a little bit better at doing like kilos to pounds, especially if you're like sort of from like a weightlifting community. But it's pretty straightforward. So it's like 20 kilos is like 44 pounds. So obviously 10 kilos is 12 pounds. You know, like sorry, 22 pounds. You know, things like that. So that's not too hard to figure out. But yeah, we're a bit of a weird country in that regard. And I think it's it's like you could talk to like a builder and he'll be like talking to you in like inches and feet, and then you could talk to another builder and he's talking to you in like centimeters and like meters. So it really is just like we can't make up our mind over here. Yeah, we can't make our mind up over here. I remember though, I went to Florida when I was younger, and in the car the like speedometer was like in kilometers.
Oh, interesting.
So I remember at the time being like, I thought Americans used imperial. So I was like really confused. I was like,
I wonder if he bought it in
Canada
Canada or something and drove it down.
Maybe. I mean, it's quite a distance, isn't it? Florida from Canada.
Yeah, but people do it. Just bought, my other truck had just completely killed itself. And I bought a new truck, not a new, but new to me truck, and it came from Canada. But the dealership switched out the speedometer for me before I took it. So.
So do Canadians use a metric system?
Apparently, at least in some parts, when they make their trucks, they use kilometers.
That's weird, isn't it? You wouldn't think that because, I mean, I guess the only difference really between like a Canadian and American is that Canadians like stayed under the monarchy, rather than whereas you rebels like were like not having any of that, mate. So, but like really, apart from that, that's like the only difference, isn't it? Really. So I have no idea why the Canadians were like, oh, we're just going to get a bit French with our measurements.
I can't remember. I've driven in Canada, but
maybe
I can't
it is
remember
the French influence.
What the speed limit sign said.
Yeah, maybe it is like all the French influence over in Canada.
Yeah, maybe it's only the French side.
Might be something like that. Yeah. So what? Just because I'm interested in like trucks and stuff. What truck did you have? The one that died, and what's the one you got now?
They're both Chevys. The one that died was 2011 V8, and apparently there's sort of a known problem with that year and engine, because they have that sort of efficiency system where some of the cylinders will shut down when they're not needed, which is supposed to be great for gas usage and the life of your engine, but apparently it also because they're the precision. Sorry if I'm getting too nerdy. I like this stuff too.
No, I love it.
The allowances for the sizes of things like pistons and engine parts was maybe bigger than it should have been. So some of the trucks of that year and engine don't have a problem at all because whatever the piston size was right. But the ones that are off in their allowance, would be this buildup of oil. So I kept getting oil pressure problems, and eventually the rear main seal blew, and it was just like slow leaking. So I'd have to like every 80 miles or so just dump in a couple quarts of oil to keep it going. But then the hub went out on the front driver's side tire, and it was just the frame was getting rusted and starting to have some like cracks and stuff, and I was just like, oh, this is too much. So I let it go.
Had you racked up the mileage in it? Because it's not a very old car, really.
Yeah, no, about 145,000 miles, I think. So should have been able to go a bit longer, but the oil thing was just too much.
Yeah, and what's your new Chevy truck like?
It's cool. It's a 2022. It's a V4, which is weird, but it has the turbo, so it actually can pull 9,000 pounds, which I need because my mule is fat and my horse is big. But yeah, it's cool. I like it. So far, so good. It's nice not to be worrying about the engine oil light popping on all the time. And
yeah, for sure. You mentioned your horse and your mule. Did you get them when you moved to Montana?
Yeah.
Yeah, and what was that like? Did you have any like experience like rearing horses before that? Or?
Oh my God, I got the mule first. I had just gotten fascinated with the packing. The guys that pack into the wilderness on a horse and they have a string of mules behind them carrying all their stuff.
So basically what you're telling me is you had this image of you with a cowgirl hat on riding a freaking mule and you just thought, I need to make that happen.
Yeah. And then one of the people
enough.
that lives on the street here, when I first moved here, they rode up to my house, like on their horses with guns strapped on.
Howdy, ma'am.
Yeah, 100%. It was like the most Montana thing ever. They had like revolvers on their hips, and they rode up in their horses, and they're like, we just wanted to introduce ourselves. And they're like, do you have a horse? And I was like, no, but I want a mule. And they're like, we actually have a mule that we want to get rid of because he fights with our horse. And I was like, I will buy him. So I bought him, and then I was like,
That's so cool.
I don't know what to do with a mule. Like I would go out, like I ended up boarding him at this woman's house because I didn't know how to take care of him. I didn't know what to do, and I was like, I need help, so I'm going to board him, and maybe she can help me. And I would go out and I would try to put the halter on him, and he would just drag me around. He's huge. He's a draft horse class, so he's just a monster of a mule. And he would just drag me around, and he'd get away, and I'd chase him, and it was just a nightmare. And one day the lady who was boarding him came out, and she was like, do you want like some lessons? And I was like, please, God, yes. And she's just a tiny thing, but like a real cowgirl, like from, I forget it was North or South Dakota. Like she's raised on a ranch. She's tough as hell. Weighs about 115 pounds, and she would just go out and like yell at the mule and like whip the ground with a rope, and like pretty soon he just did what she said, and then it sort of transferred to me, and he started doing what I said, and I just sort of slowly figured out how to horse, how to mule.
That's so cool. That's so cool. As a side note, I love that like a normal, opening greeting for somebody from Montana is like, have you got a horse? He said it like when they first came out, she was like, hey ma'am, got a horse? First thing they said.
It's very important information.
Yeah. It's like you're in that freaking like video game Red Dead Redemption or something. Do you know what I mean? I have to say that it does really appeal to me, though. I think that's one of the reasons that I'd like to come to Montana. Exactly the same as you, it's just, I love that whole imagery of just like, cowboys, cowgirls, being on horseback, like mountains and trees and lakes and snow-peaked mountains and valleys and that. It's just,
it's
without trying to sound all fruity, it's like romantic, isn't it?
Yeah, very much. Yeah. If you come out, let me know. I've got all kinds of connections for where to do those kind of like ride the horse up onto a mountaintop kind of stuff. It's awesome.
Oh yeah. It's definitely on my bucket list to say. It's like as soon as I get a chance, I am coming over to Montana.
Yeah. Glacier National Park is also fantastic. It's the most aside from like the fjords in New Zealand or Norway, it's like the most beautiful place I've ever seen.
Yeah, since I mean, from the pictures, the videos and pictures I've seen of Montana, it's almost like I've always like described it as like I can imagine like if heaven exists, when I die and go to heaven, it will look like Montana. Like to me, that would be like my heaven, It's just the right mix of everything, because I think everybody likes going to like hot countries on holiday and stuff like that, but I couldn't live in like a hot climate all the time. It's just like not in my blood, and I get hot too easily, and when I start sweating, I don't want to be sweating all the time, and all summer, and people probably freaking laugh, right? Because obviously you're from like California, right? But in like the summertime in the UK, it's like I just freaking walk around the whole time in like short shorts and like a t-shirt, sweating. And it's like I'm like just waiting for autumn to come around. Do you know what I mean? I'm just like I just want to wear jeans and be comfortable. Like so like like I think like a state like Montana would be like perfect for me. With the right mixture of like the temperature and like the wilderness. But what sort of like what was sort of like the average temperature in sort of like Montana, would you say, like year round?
Oh man, we get pretty drastic here. The coldest day this winter was negative 45 Fahrenheit. The warmest day in the summer was 99 Fahrenheit. So we've got
that's quite a contrast,
swing
isn't it?
from about 144 degrees Fahrenheit from summer to winter. So
that's like the UK on steroids, that is. Because we're quite similar in terms of it's quite a big contrast. You know what I mean? It's like we can have really cold winters, but then like surprising. I think to like a lot of people, they just hear that like Britain's cold all the time, but we do actually have quite hot like summers. We can, at least for me anyway. But that's like even more of an extreme.
Yeah, it's wild, but in between, it's not quite that crazy where we are. Throughout the fall, you can expect there to be like a little bit of snow to rain sort of temperature range, and same with spring. It's just really like the dead of winter and the dead of summer that are kind of extreme. But aside from that,
Yeah,
I'd say it's
that's so
kind of
cool.
mild, leaning towards cold.
Sure. And like going more to on the training side of things, obviously with you being like a coach for RP, like how much like do you work out like yourself other than obviously doing like Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu and that? Like do you work out like with weights or in the gym and stuff like regularly?
Yeah. Usually
Yeah,
five
and, like,
times
you
a
obviously-
week. During hunting season, I'll drop it to 3 times just because my legs are always sore from rucking around in the forest all day.
Sure. And like, do you like follow like a program, or do you just more sort of like do like whatever you want? Or
Yeah, I do. I usually, if I haven't written, I'll write my own specific programs. If I have like a goal, like to get ready for Spring Bear, I did like sort of a strength phase I wrote for myself and rucking. But the rest of the time, I just use the app, the RP app.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, makes sense. Yeah, I mean, I've heard a lot about the RP app and heard that it's like a really cool thing. I'd love to try it at some point.
It just sort of simplifies things. It's easy to log. I have a track. I don't have to write things on a piece of paper. It has the drop down for all the lifts I want to do. So it's just a really straightforward way for me.
Yeah. For people that are listening that don't know what the RP strength app is, do you want to like give sort of like a brief summary of what it is?
Yeah.
For anybody out there that's interested?
Yeah, it's basically a hypertrophy app, so it's geared towards higher volume training. So for periods, if you're trying to lose fat or gain muscle, it's ideal. It's less of a strength app, like if you're just trying to get as strong as possible or you're doing something like
like
that.
a power lifter.
Yeah,
or a strongman.
it's much more focused on volume increases rather than strength increases, though you could tweak it for that if you wanted to use it as a log.
Sure.
But yeah, so it's great for hypertrophy. Basically, you can jump in and use a pre-made program, or you can custom design your own and sort of choose the different lifts for the different muscle groups and choose how long you want the mesocycle to be, and then you give it input after each exercise as you go, and it sort of auto adjusts the volume up or down according to what you say. So it's nice way for me, like I know how to think about these things and adjust it myself, but it's also nice not to have to and just have it.
Oh yeah, 100%. It just like saves you time. So have you got like a home gym?
Yeah.
Ah, perfect.
I belong to a gym as
more
well,
for
so I kind of got a little of both.
Nice. So when did you like get into weight training?
And actually, Dr. Mike got me into that when I met him, when he was coming and visiting our grad school apartment. He would always go to the gym and lift, and I was kind of like, oh, I'm curious, lifting curious. And so he kind of got me lifting, and then he somehow convinced me to do like a bikini show. And it was like quite possibly the worst experience of my life, but super interesting. Just not like.
Why'd you say it was like one of the worst experiences? Just because like, did you just feel like a bit weird on stage in like a bikini?
It was a lot of stuff. So first of all, this is before Dr. Mike was Dr. Mike. This is before Dr. Mike knew all the things that Dr. Mike knows. So he put me on a horrific diet that was probably like not at all good for me. They're like.
What was it?
There were days when I wasn't allowed to eat any fat or any carbs, so I could only eat protein, and it was like 800 calories. He was on.
That's brutal.
Yeah, it was like
So
before
brutal.
he had a good. He was still. I think he was an undergrad, if that, maybe like second year of undergrad or something.
Sure.
It was a keto diet for the most part, and then randomly he'd have me eat like a box of cookies, do like this.
Like to a young Dr. Mike, that was a good prepping for a bikini show diet.
So, and I got leaner than I'd ever been because I'd never really dieted before. And then I was like, okay, we're showing up at the show, right? And I was like, wait, what do I do when I get up there? Like, what do I do? And he was like, I don't know. And I was like, what do you mean you don't know? You talked me into this. I'm here. I'm orange. I'm in a bikini. I'm going to go out on the stage.
You've just turned yourself into an Oompa Loompa.
Yeah, what am I supposed to do out there? I can't walk good in heels. I'm afraid I'm going to fall down. And he was like, ask someone in the back. So, like, they sent me into the back, and he wasn't allowed to come with me. So I'm just back there with all these chicks who are, like, glaring at each other because they want to beat each other. And I
getting all catty.
Sheepishly walked up to someone, and I was like, what do we do when we go out on stage? And she kind of showed me and told me, and it was just, I don't know, the vibe for me, like the focus on aesthetics and just rather than like ability to do things. Like I want to go show off what I can do and win something. I don't want to show off how I look and win something. So I didn't win. I didn't even come close, but it was a good insight into that world and what goes on, but it was also very clear that it was not for me.
So you're just like awkwardly doing like bicep poses and like what are they called, like 3/4 turns, stuff like that. And
the pictures are amazing. Like I don't have a very good poker face, so I'm like on stage posing and I'm just like no smile, just
like
rage.
depressed. Yeah.
Like I hate this
So
time.
funny. I love how I love how like you like met Dr. Mike and then like within like no time he convinced you to do a bikini show. Like just like that's the effect that Dr. Mike has on people. Like you just meet him and you'll just become like a onstage bodybuilder or whatever.
Sucks
like,
you right
away.
into his world and is like, here's what your potential is. Do this.
Good salesman. He's a good
definitely.
salesman. So that's when you got into lifting weights, was because Dr. Mike got you into that. I'm surprised that wasn't enough to put you off lifting weights for the rest of your life.
The funny thing is, Mike trained me indirectly through my roommate, who had like terrible form at the time and terrible understanding of lifting. So Mike would tell him, it was like a game of telephone that ended in me doing like bullshit probably a lot. But then Dr. Mike would show up and be like, what are you doing? And he'd fix it. So.
That's so good. Would you say like you really enjoy weight training and stuff?
Oh, absolutely not. It's I don't like it at all. It's like a task.
So if it's like a necessity.
Yeah. It's just work you got to do.
Do you just see it as like something that will make you better at jiu-jitsu and like hunting and rucking and stuff like that? Just purely, I enjoy slightly a strength phase. Like, let's max out a deadlift and like see how much stronger I've gotten the last time. Like I find some joy in that, but in just like the monotony of daily lifting, like. So you find it fun hitting PR?
Yeah.
What are your SBD PRs?
Oh God, they're not very good. I think the heaviest deadlift I've never done 1 rep maxes. The heaviest deadlift I ever did was 210 for 4. When I weighed like 130. I think.
That's really decent for that body weight. That's like so long. How tall are you?
5'6".
How tall are you? That's just super light, especially for like for that height. I thought you were going to then say that you were like 4'11", and I didn't realize you were so short or something.
Bench, I think I hit body weight once, like around 135 when I was 135. Squats always been my weakest. I think 165 was maybe the heaviest I ever did on squats. I had the knee issue for a long time, so I kind of avoided them for a while.
Sure.
And I've always just struggled with them. My quads, my posterior chain's pretty strong. My quads are kind of relatively weak comparatively. So. Okay.
So what does like a typical day in the gym look like for you?
Right now I'm just doing strength because it's in season. So just, a couple sets of 4 to 6 reps of every muscle group 2 times a week across 3 days. The rest of the year I mostly do hypertrophy, so it'll just be like lots of volume for like, especially the muscles that I want to be big, like my shoulders and butt. It's just like shoulders and butt 80% of the time.
Standard. Yeah. Nice. So what are your like favorite movements to do in the gym?
I like good mornings a lot because I feel like I'm good at them. Like they feel strong. I like deadlifts a lot. I like all the shoulder stuff. I love anything where I can sit down. So like a leg press or a leg extension. Those are great.
Nice. And like, how much do you look into like the nutrition side of things? Are you like really like into like nutrition and making sure that you're on like a like specific diet, or like how do you sort of deal with all of that?
It depends. I'm like Montana's winter and summer. It's like a big dichotomy. So after like, for example, after my knee surgery, I had gained quite a bit of weight. So last year at this time, I weighed 152. This year, I weigh 132. So all of the last year or so, I've been kind of on strict diets. Like I ran 2 separate fat loss phases, and then was kind of careful about maintenance. But then, for example, like spring bear, when I might be out walking 10 miles a day, several days in a row, then like I'm all about the gas station corn dogs and beef jerky and Twinkies and like just crap. I have a soft spot for awful food.
So would you say that when you're like off, you're very off, and then when you're on, you're very on? Or so you're not so much like, oh, I'll eat clean from Monday to Friday and then I'll like indulge a bit on the weekend? Or?
Yeah, no, the indulgence comes with like when I'm not focused on any kind of body comp change and I'm like working hard. So like right now while I'm in the woods a lot and I'm tired, I'm like, I crave those just crappy comfort foods, I guess. Yeah. But if it weren't hunting season and I weren't on a diet, it's kind of a mix and match. I eat a lot of fruits and vegetables during the day. I eat relatively healthy, but I certainly won't say no to like a Reese's Pieces cookie if it's offered. Sure.
So what does like I guess it depends on, you know, whether you're on a fat loss phase or not. But what would you say is like a typical day of eating for you? Like what would you normally eat from getting up in the morning? Like what would you have for breakfast and then lunch, dinner, right through to the evening when you go to bed?
Yeah, I have I go through phases that last like 6 months to a year where I eat the exact same thing, and I've been on a roll lately. In the morning, I have 2 slices of turkey bacon, egg whites and cheese, and an English muffin. Then for lunch, I mix Greek yogurt and ranch dressing, and I dip carrots and broccoli in it, and then I have baked tilapia and mashed potatoes. And then dinner's kind of a free-for-all. Depends on what I'm doing, what I did that day. Sometimes it'll be, you know, like a frozen pizza if I went to the woods and came back out. Sometimes I'll actually cook, like if I have game meat, I like to play with recipes for dinner and make like deer stew or, you know, different recipes with the game meat I have. So that's sort of my free-for-all meal. And then I tend to snack in between.
Sure. Yeah, what sort of things do you like snacking on?
String cheese and fruit. Beef jerky, those are big ones. Peeps.
Nice.
I love a
I think it's
peep
sort of
during
like
Easter.
Love a
Peeps.
what? Sorry.
You do little marshmallow
what's
like bunnies they have at Easter. I don't know if you guys have those.
I don't think we have them over here. If they do, then I've never heard of them. A peep.
Yeah.
Obviously, we have lots of marshmallows.
It's basically like
I've never heard of that.
sugar-covered marshmallow. It comes in bright colors, which for some reason makes it more appetizing to me.
Yeah, well, fair enough. So would you say, obviously you said that when you're like rucking and stuff, you'd like come back and have a frozen pizza. Is that very much from a common sense point of view? You think like, right, well, I've been burning all these calories, so I'm not going to I'm not going to sweat over the fact that I'm eating like something like pizza. Is it very just common sense like that? Yeah, I'm very the same. It's just like at the moment I'm like completely renovating like my garden. I live in like a little village in the countryside, and it's like so much work. The amount of just like digging and rotavating and like raking and essentially just making like piles of like mounds of dirt and then filling in other places and stuff. And you know, it's like and then if you know, and it's not like I'm like taking time off training as well. I'm still hitting all the doing all the gym stuff. And it's like I will just go in and I can tell I'm like super like tired and I'm only halfway through doing what I'm doing on like a Sunday. And I will go in the freaking house and I will eat like a whole freaking bag of like sweet and sour popcorn, because I can tell my body's like craving it, and I'll just eat the whole freaking thing, and I'll have like, and then I'll just have like a cup of tea or coffee, but I'll just put like loads of freaking honey in it as well, and just like zoop, power up again, and then I'll get back out there, and then I'm just like, and then I'll just freaking just on it again for like the next like 3 or 4 hours again.
There's a linear relationship between honey and how many holes were dug.
yeah, definitely. But I think I'm not going to be like freaking. I mean, I think I'm not going to like put my back out because my body's like I'm just putting my body under so much like pressure because I'm like not giving it enough like fuel for the machine, and I'm like expecting all of this stuff from it. And at the end of the day, it's like, do you know what I mean? I've got like a missus and a kid and stuff. Like I don't really care if like if I got like abs on it. I'm not like bothered by that in the freaking slightest.
100%.
I'm all concerned about the guns. As long as they can fill out my t-shirts, I'm fine. But yeah, that's so cool. What else was I going to ask you? Have you got any other sort of interests and like hobbies outside of like you're a hunter and you love your jiu-jitsu and stuff like that? Is there anything else that maybe people that know you from like social media or any clients of yours would be like surprised to like know about you? Like any interests or hobbies?
I paint. I don't post very much about that, but I'm a painter.
Nice. How come you don't like post anything about that? Is it just a very personal thing to you? You just don't want to, or
I every now and then I'll post something that I've painted or drawn, but I think it's because I have like 8 paintings going at once and they're never done. And I'm always like, oh, maybe I'll post this when it's done, but it's never done because I start a new one and then just don't get back to it. So I think that's probably part of it.
would you say that's very like typical of your personality?
No, not really. It's a bit atypical. I think the painting thing bothers me because it's hard to know like when you've reached, it's not a quantifiable thing. Like I'll find something
Sure.
wrong with the painting still. Like there's no one to say like, no, that's it. You got to the last part. Like here's your black belt. Here's your degree. Like you're done.
Yeah, sure. So it's more like in your head it's
Yeah,
not finished,
yeah.
but they might as well be finished, sort of thing. And like, when did you start like getting into art? Have you always been into art, or is it like a fairly new thing?
No,
or-
I've been painting. My grandma was an artist. I've been painting since I could hold a paintbrush, basically.
Oh, that's amazing. Did she like do that for a living?
Not directly, but she did. Like she bought land with her painting. She used to buy like washers and dryers and trade things. So she wasn't like, she didn't have gallery. She had a couple gallery shows, but she wasn't like a, solely reliant on that. Her husband worked and.
Sure. That's cool. Anything else? Any other little like hobbies or interesting facts?
I think they're all related to hunting. I've been doing like animal tracking and trailing certification course I just finished yesterday, that kind of stuff, like all sort of related to being in the woods and like self-reliance kind of stuff, shooting and that sort of thing.
Nice. Do you ever like I know you have to be really careful with like how you cook bear meat because they've got like some savage like worms and
They
things,
add
don't they?
trichinosis.
So-
It's the same as pork though.
That's it, trichinosis. Is it exactly the same?
Yeah,
as pork?
trichinosis was a problem in pork for a long time.
What, just like regular farm
Yeah,
pigs?
yeah. I think they've
I did not know that.
I think they've eliminated it.
I don't know
at
if
this
I don't
point,
know if that was
just through like careful
Right.
breeding and stuff like that and keeping them away from things. But for a long time, that's why the rule to cook pork to 165 exists, because they had trichinella also. Just
I wonder if that was like exclusive to the US or if that was like a thing
Yeah,
over
I'm
here
not
as well.
sure.
I don't know. I'll have to look
Yeah.
into it. Yeah, I'll have to look into it. But yeah, so are you like always really careful when you cook
yeah,
your bear meat then?
165 degrees always.
Yeah, because we were talking about Stephen Earle a bit earlier. I remember listening to a podcast and he got it.
Yeah.
He said he'd been like hiking for days, I think, and trying to find a bear, and then they finally got it, and obviously they were like really celebrating. He was happy. He was with a couple of his friends. They were like cooking it on a fire, and he said he was just so hungry because he'd been like surviving off just like what he had in his pack. And he said he can remember. I remember him saying he could even remember, like, as he was eating, he was thinking, like, I'm not sure if this is like done, but because his mates were like talking to him,
Yeah, it's like
and he was just like so happy and so hungry. He like, I guess you wouldn't probably if you weren't so hungry, but he just threw caution to the wind, and then he just got it, and he said it was like savage, like for like years. But yeah, that's brutal. I mean, I think anything like that, I don't know about you, but like things like parasites and that creep me out way more than like actually a bear itself, because at least you can see it
100%.
coming,
100%. I always tell my
The
friends,
idea that this like malicious.
Sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, no, sorry, go on.
It's
No,
the
go on.
ticks that scare me more in the woods here than the bears.
Oh yeah,
Like just little tiny creep up on you things.
yeah. Yeah, we've got like a big, well, I don't know if you call it a problem. I guess it's pretty natural, but like where we live in the UK, there's just like, ticks like all over the place. You just have to be so careful. Yeah, my missus even got one just like in our back garden, and I was like, what the hell? Because I mean, I mow the lawn obviously like all the
What
frickin'
do you
time.
do?
It makes you paranoid, you know?
What are you
like,
doing on my property? Tick?
yeah. But you have to be really careful. Like, if you go out for like a hike, in like the woods and stuff like that, you have to check really when you get back. I mean, a friend of mine, funnily enough, the same friend that was like a really great runner. He's a tree surgeon, and he said that like he's like always finding ticks on him. Always. Luckily, he's never got Lyme's disease or anything like that. I don't know if he's just like immune to it or what, but yeah, savage. With your you're saying that you're really into like all your hunting stuff and your outdoor stuff. Do you like follow anybody like sort of like Pat McNamara, who has more of like a Black Ops background but overlaps with or like the hunting and
A
guns
bit.
and stuff like
I
that?
follow the exclusive hunters more carefully, but I have friends who are super into the like more gun nerd side, so I get a little bit from them. But But yeah, I don't nerd out as hard on the gun side. Maybe more than the average person, but not like, if you know gun nerds, not like that level.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't know. I think with me, I think it's probably the same reason why I've I wanted to invite you on as a guest and why I followed you for years. I'm interested by, people that obviously have similar interests to me, but also people I think are like formidable people, I guess maybe you describe it as, or anybody that, like, if I think somebody's like better than me at something that I'm interested in, I'll find them like interesting, and then I want to like know more about them and sort of pick, like naturally watch their content or pick their brains about it. But there's this really cool guy called Pat McNamara that I follow. He's like an ex-US Black Ops guy, and all of his, if he's not like posting videos of him just like training like a badass, it's always like him like at the gun range, or him just like, it's all just like very utilitarian like cool stuff, or him talking about like old school, like when he was like training in the military and he'd just be like dropped in the wilderness and it's like some badass story about how he'd have to like then like somehow like fish, but they wouldn't have any fishing gear. I love all that stuff. So freaking cool. So freaking cool. Just to finish up, I'd like to ask you some like random bits of Dr. Mel trivia, if that's all right. So what's your favorite movie?
Ooh, man, I don't know if I have a favorite movie. I have a favorite show.
What's your favorite show?
It's called The Patriot, and it's not the Mel Gibson Patriot movie.
Yeah, sure. That is a movie. Yeah.
It's
like freaking awkward. I'm British. Right?
It's about an American spy who's also a folk singer, and that sounds cheesy as hell, but it is like one of the only things in my life I have ever laughed out loud so much to alone, and one of the only things that I could say I could watch this again. It's amazing.
Nice. It's like, The Patriot. I'm not sure if I've ever heard of that. Is that like a newish show?
It's on Amazon Prime. I think it came out several years ago, but it's worth a watch.
Oh, nice.
It starts slow, but like by the end, I like crying laughing.
Yeah, I'll have to check it out. I mean, I love folk music and stuff like that, so I assume I would probably like it. What about like when it does come to movies? What sort of movies do you tend to like? Like, do you like fantasy movies, sci-fi movies, horror movies, comedies?
I like action mostly, like
Commando.
Yeah, crime documentaries or like war movies or detective movies, that kind of stuff.
Predator. Do you like all like your 80s action movies? And
oh yeah, those are always fun.
Yeah, I think if you grew up in that era, like you can't not love all the old
you gotta have a
Jean-Claude
soft
Van Damme
spot
movies
for an
and
Arnold movie.
Oh yeah, 100%. What is your favorite Arnold movie? Do you reckon?
Oh man, I don't know if I can pick a favorite. He's just such an interesting character. He's so silly. Like his acting is even silly. Like he's great.
I always think like he's like one of those people that like whichever character he plays, he is just Arnold.
Yeah, exactly.
Like, he doesn't really have like his characters aren't characters. He's just Arnold, but with a different name, like whatever name it is on that one. Oh, he's like Dutch in this movie, and this one, he's like John Matrix in this one. Oh, okay. Are you like into like music much?
Yeah.
Yeah, what's your favorite sort of like music like genre and your favorite musicians or artists?
I think I'm not even sure what you call like the genre of music I like. I like The National a lot, Lord Huron. Kind of, I guess bands with good lyrics is what really sucks me in. Like the music could be any range of like okay to great, but if the lyrics are poetic and intriguing, then I'll usually get into it.
So that pulls you in. And would you say it's more the actual lyrics themselves or like the vocals? Is it the lyrics themselves, like the content of the writing? Yeah. All right, that's interesting. That's interesting because it's like, I mean, it's such a broad spectrum because I know that some people that are the complete opposite of that. Like they won't even know what a song's like. They won't even pay attention to the lyrics. They're just liking like a what the music's doing. Yeah. So yeah, no, that's interesting. That's cool. What's your favorite color?
Orange.
Interesting. Do you know what? I don't think we've ever had a guest that said orange before.
It's been my favorite color since I was like 13.
That's hence the hoodie.
This is a little yellowy. I like more of a pumpkin orange, but
yeah. They are sort of like mustardy, isn't it? What you call, I guess. Yeah, that's interesting. I don't think we've ever had anyone say orange. I think the other sort of interesting one we got once is I don't know if you've heard of a guy called like Brian Owsrew. He's like a strong man from Maryland. He's a really
awesome.
cool guy. But he said grey, and I thought that was an interesting one as well. Yeah.
Like a mix
What's
of
your
the
favourite
two
food,
not
Mel?
colors. Sorry.
Yeah. So, what's your favourite food?
Oh, man.
Bear.
My favorite game meat is bear. I think my favorite dessert, which I don't know if that counts as my favorite food, are the Napoleons, like with the custard and then the flaky pastry dough and then the sugar coating on top. That's up there.
Right. Maybe let's go for like favorite savory as well then, because you've done your sweet.
My sweet favorite. Oh man.
Or maybe just read off a few. If you can't like decide on one, like I love. Like,
I love food.
I love like Italian.
My
Thai,
favorite
Mexican.
crappy food would be like a corn dog dipped in nacho cheese.
That's the most like American answer ever. That is.
I love sushi. I
mean that
love
lovingly.
Vietnamese soup. I love Korean barbecue. There's really, if you try to get me to name a food I don't like, that would be a lot easier or a lot shorter list.
Sure. That's one thing just before we end. I was going to ask you that I forgot to earlier on. Just because I think people out there would be interested for your answer. What's your like views on like supplements? Do you take any supplements? Do you think they're worth taking?
I don't take very many supplements. They're not, even the ones that work aren't worth it to me, I think, just because of the inconvenience. I'll take vitamin D in the winter to try to help avoid like winter depression kind of stuff. But other than that, like if it's a gummy, I might take it daily because I want to eat a gummy candy. If it's not a gummy,
you'll have a multivitamin if it's a gummy.
I'll supplement if it's a gummy.
Sure.
Caffeine definitely, but I don't really mess with many supplements. Creatine always made me nauseous.
Don't take creatine?
It just
really?
It did like I never gained the water weight or had any of the like effects. Apparently that's pretty rare, but
right, so it's just pointless.
I tried it several times and it was always nausea and no improvement in training, so I was like, you know what, forget it.
I think I have heard that maybe it might have even been as much as 1 in 3 people are like non-responders to creatine.
Yeah, that's more than I thought, but I'm definitely one of those.
I might have messed that up, but I think it might have been that. Yeah, but I think it's definitely worth taking if you do respond well
definitely.
to it.
And I've seen
always,
people
really
respond
taking creatine.
amazingly. Like I've had clients who just have great results, and I kept trying again to see if I just did it wrong or I didn't wait long enough, and I just never did it.
Yeah, fair enough. I mean, if it's like literally having no effect, then you're literally just like might as well just be like pouring your money down the drain, you know, throwing money down the drain. Yeah, 100%. But if it does work for you, I mean, because apparently it helps you recover in between sets as well as like in between sessions. It helps with like weight gain if you like suffer with that, and apparently like that doesn't really have any negative side effects. People used to say it like damage to kidneys and stuff. But that seems to all be like rubbish, doesn't it? And apparently it has like some positive benefits on like your brain, like preventing things like mental health conditions. I've heard.
There's some
I don't know if it's like specific ones or.
I can't remember. I remember reading
some
of the data on that, but I can't remember specifically what it was. If it was just like generalized anxiety and depression kind of thing, or if there were more specific disease states.
I think I might have read. It might have even been Dr. Mike, but I think I might have. Read that, or it might be Menno Hanselman. He's got a really good page.
He's great.
I know that Dr. Mike's good friends with him. I think it might have been Menno. He was saying that it can prevent things like Alzheimer's and
that makes sense
Like
actually.
that,
Alzheimer's a lot of times is tied to like blood vessel problems, and I imagine creatine is good for keeping those recovering from any pressure or things they deal with. Makes sense.
Awesome. And I think I even heard something recently that said it can like affect your nervous system in a beneficial way as well. I don't know like the intricacies of like how or why, but I just thought that's
interesting. I hadn't read that yet, but it's worth checking out.
Yeah. So you don't bother with like whey protein or anything else, just a bit of vitamin D.
Yeah, I have whey protein around, but it'll probably last me a whole year. Mostly I use it as a solvent for cereal if I want to eat cereal, so that I'm getting protein in the meal. But not a regular thing.
Sure.
Really.
Do you track your macros?
Only when I'm dieting, really. I kind of eyeball
Sure.
things. Like I typically wouldn't eat a meal
Yeah.
that doesn't have protein in it. It just feels weird at this point.
Yeah.
But I track
Yeah,
them
I
very
know what you mean,
carefully during, especially the tail end of a diet. But the rest of the time, it's kind of just eyeballing.
Sure. Yeah, I think it's very time consuming to like track calories like
I hate it.
accurately. Like I cannot be bothered to like count how many freaking like to the gram, like how many grams of like protein, carbs, and fats I've had. Like, man, life is too
Yeah.
short for that. Unless, as I said, unless you're obviously like a bodybuilder or like a powerlifter maybe as well. That's like needs to be like get to a certain weight category or
Yeah.
something like that. Like life's just too short, man. You
100%.
said just eyeball it. Awesome. Well, thanks so much for coming on, Dr. Mel. Have you got anything else you want to like say or like plug or just say to anybody out there that's listening right now?
Oh man. No, I hope you're all having a good day and pursuing stuff that you love.
Awesome answer. Thanks so much, Dr. Mel. It's been awesome speaking
Thank
to you.
you.
Enjoy the rest of your day.
You too. Let me know if you come to Montana. I'll show your family around.
I definitely
Okay.
will. Thank you so much, Dr. Mel. Awesome.